howdy. We're Squawking Dead. You're welcome to stay here as long as you need until you've had enough of us. There's an Instagram account you can browse through and look at the pretty pictures. On Sundays, I like to browse the blog for episode recaps and comic spoilers. I've seen my favorites, but I'm reading them alphabetically. Occasionally, when I'm feeling a bit saucy, I like to browse the Twitter and pretend I'm the Candyman, sending love to everyone's post and let them know my intentions are good and I value their company. Oh, I see. I've talked too much again. Well, I suppose when that happens, I must defer to the platypus on my Scrabble board, snooze the singing bass alarm clock on my nightstand, and surrender the cabin I've built with my own two hands to protect my partner, Carol.
That was a pretty good impression. I gotta give it to you.
You're welcome, man. Much obliged.
Gosh, I was truly taken aback by this episode. When I knew that this was a Laura and John Dorie backstory, I was apprehensive. I was like, oh God, I hope that this isn't going to give me...
Hope he's not a psycho killer.
I hope it wasn't Shades of Misery. That was my biggest concern. I was like, oh gosh, I hope that that's not the kind of depth that he has.
But nothing could be further from the truth.
I was trying to rack my brain. I was like, have we had any episode in the Walking Dead universe that was a romantic love story episode? I don't think we have.
And the closest that we seem to have gotten was that Michonne Rick scene in that sort of county fair that doubled as a FEMA center, basically, with the chili mac.
Yeah. I thought to myself, I was like, well, maybe certain moments with Maggie and Glenn, but even then, there was never like a sort of, we're just going to focus on this relationship. To me, this was definitely a first.
Yeah, more than anything else, that's kind of what makes this episode stand out in general anyway, because I don't know if this is an overall thing from Scott Gimple or Gail Ann Hurd or any of them, the showrunners, but we've experienced like 2+ years of just absolute sadness. And it has been mentioned that Fear the Walking Dead is going to be somewhat of a hope / bring them down just to give them hope again story. So to see this kind of port in the storm,
not just beat us down relentlessly.
Yeah, and it's this thing where we've talked about game theory, basically just giving people just enough to hang on to keep watching. And finally, we're getting this jackpot payoff. That feels good. And to have the episode itself be so good, it's just so pure.
Yeah, and I think it was very well done, the symbolism in the episode. And it was so simple in the sense that the setting was simple because we didn't go anywhere, really. We stayed in this same setting. We weren't venturing into some other town. Almost kind of like a play, other than the point when they were in the boat. For the most part, they're in his house on an island, or his own little sort of island, I should say, man-made island.
No man is an island, yeah.
Right, exactly. And just basically kind of focus on these two people and this relationship. And I really like that. I felt it was very pure. It was very well done, but it was very profound. Some of the dialogue just hit it out of the ballpark to me. Really.
Yeah, I think what this episode illustrates also very well is that, and of course, the director / co-executive producer, Michael Satrazemis, he seems to line up the shots just right, along with the cinematographers, trying to get the angles that they wanted the most, and then a lot of still camera shots, surprisingly enough. And just to see all that kind of come together to weave this picture, it's not just the dialogue, it's not just the acting. I actually mentioned this, it's kind of as though the cinematography itself is another character, almost like the narrator almost. It gives you their perspective.
Yep, I could definitely see that. The shots, the way things were shot were very interesting, and the subtleties too, the progression of the relationship in very subtle sort of ways, even just where we start at the beginning of the episode and where we end. Laura, Naomi, however you want to, let's call her Laura.
I was going to call her Naomi because I think that's her real name.
She looks like a Laura. It's so funny.
You look like a Laura, right?
You look like a Laura. I was like, well, what did Lauras look like? I thought to myself, I was like, do I know any Lauras? I don't think I do, actually. But
yeah, I know one.
I don't know.
We have a mac and cheese club together. It's a thing.
There's a mac and cheese club?
You want to join it?
Maybe.
You're welcome anytime.
Sounds intriguing.
We got the Western mac and cheese.
Oh God, there is a place in Soho that makes amazing different kinds of mac and cheese.
Oh, I know. We've been there.
Oh, it's good. I miss that.
Murray's
we
mac
don't
and
have
cheese. Yep.
We don't have that in Miami, sadly.
Oh.
Because people here don't indulge like that. But that's okay.
That's a missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Major missed opportunity. I don't know what they're missing. But yeah, I like the subtleties too. They start off when they're watching TV and she's sitting on one end of the couch and he's on the other. And by the time we come to the end, the distance has decreased.
It's closed. Yep.
Yeah, it was just the subtleties.
Just the little things, yeah. Those are writing choices right there.
Those
really
are
good writing choices.
Very good writing choices that really are small little details that go a long way to illustrating how far the relationship has come in terms of trust, in terms of intimacy. And it was nice to see something heartfelt. And also in light of the fact that from what we understand, she didn't get out of the stadium, according to Luciana. So in light of that, it just adds another layer of emotion behind it. It's like, this is the woman that convinced him to kind of step off of this island. Because from what we see, he had a pretty comfortable routine.
Yeah.
He would have an alarm. Oh God, that damn trout. Do you remember that trout?
Actually, I kind of wanted to bring that up because it doesn't play what the singing bass alarm clock normally plays. Yeah,
it doesn't play the jingle. No,
but I love it. They're playing "Take Me to the River" by Al Green, and I actually looked this up. It's speaking of that. It's just very literal. Okay, there's a river behind his house.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the idea of it really is just it's a lot to do with unrequited love.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who, basically Al Green, this lady's treating him mean but loves her anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the river's, he wants her to love him so that and he's fine with her being mean with him because then it grounds him.
Mm-hmm.
So I love you because you're mean to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just come around, I'll make it up to you. You grounding me will actually make me a better person.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you see John Dorie and he's an excellent person, but he's not a part of the world. And
no, he is basically kind of an island unto himself, and he's basically survived by creating this moat that just kind of protects him from the outside world. Yeah, from humanity. And we see that so far it's been working for him. He lives this life.
Yeah.
He has his routine where, he has his alarm set, which is really fascinating considering it's the apocalypse, but cleaning his weapons, tending to any random walkers that seem to stumble, takes down his little drawbridge, so to speak.
Right.
Does what he needs to do. He has movies. It's very interesting, the meticulous nature of things, even when they go to the store and he gets movies and he signs them out. Very sort of meticulousness about him.
Yeah. It's exactly like you said it. There's this routine. And
there's a routine.
If he follows this routine, he's fine. He's entertaining himself. He has this thing that he does every day to keep himself moving.
It's safe, and it preserves his sanity.
Yeah, but you see that it's starting to wear on him. And I think it goes back to this isolation thing because... so there's two parts to this. One is that what you find out later on in the episode is that he's isolated himself far before the apocalypse.
Yes.
He's been doing this for way longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that later, but it goes back to something that I said about him and Morgan is that you get this feeling from the first episode that this guy has been alone for a really long time.
Right.
Much in the way that Morgan has. I mean, Morgan, with the thing that separates the two, honestly, if you really want to get down to it, is that Morgan didn't have much of a routine. No stability in that sense.
No.
And he isolated himself a little too late. Whereas John Dorie isolates himself early on. And when we see him in this flashback, which is kind of essentially him basically relaying his story about Laura to Morgan by the time we reach the end of the episode.
Right.
What's interesting about that is you start to see it wear on him. As he's waking up in the morning, or not quite waking up because he hasn't slept, that's a very important thing to pick up on. The routine is not enough. You're starting to see.
And this is a testament also to the actor, Gary Dillahunt. He definitely conveys the sense of quiet sort of unhappiness, desperation, but begrudgingly kind of going through his life and routine and trying to keep up business as usual.
Right.
But you can tell that
malaise is the word.
That's a good one, yeah.
The general malaise.
But it doesn't really bring him any sort of fulfillment or happiness or contentment. I mean, he, like you said, he's not sleeping. He tells as much to Laura. So
yeah,
he's surviving, and he's holding on, but just barely.
What's kind of interesting about the John Dorie project what he plans out for his life as a result of his circumstances. And when you compare that and transpose that to the Clark family's proposition, let's say, there's something to be said about what both people are trying to do. Now, obviously, there are two different people that are two different types of circumstances. One is, it's like a grass is greener kind of thing.
Right.
John Dorie has what the Clarks really want, essentially, like this self-sustaining environment, like to want for nothing, right? And then the Clarks are struggling to get that, and yet they're finding meaning in the process, right? So I think the John Dorie episode serves to, like, there's this underlying tone that isn't readily available because you're really caught up in the love story and you really can't help yourself.
Yeah,
but
you can't.
The underlying tone is that it's not enough to be self-sustaining. There's got to be something more, which is something that none of the shows, Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead, have not really explored.
I agree. I think you're right. I don't think that they've ever really fully explored. And this has been a criticism that The Walking Dead has gotten, in the sense that obviously we know we're in the post-apocalyptic world and people die, people pass away, but there's never any sort of semblance of really talking or dealing with any of the emotions or grief related to it. It's sort of like it happens and then everybody just kind of moves on. And yes, okay, you do have to, but there's never really been a focus on the fact that the human element, the human relationship, is so underestimated in terms of your just sanity. And it's just something that they just haven't really focused on in this sort of level. Yeah, people are resources, but that's also in a very kind of cold way. Like, it's not about like the emotional element about it or the emotional intimacy about it. That's just sort of like, okay, well, if we want to rebuild this new world, we can't eliminate all people because people are resources and they're required to build a few. It's like, okay, yes, that is true. But this is not just about, okay, I found Laura and I have to take care of her because people are resources and we it's not,
exactly.
It's
There's a slower pace to it.
It's not about that. It's, oh, I've been here and I've been lonely and I've just sort of been here and here's this person that's washed up and I'm going to help you because I have no other intentions. I don't have any hidden intentions. It's I out of the goodness of my heart and all sincerity, I'm offering my home and anything that you need, even if you're going to go, I'm still going to help you because I want to. It's almost kind of like the
just for its own right.
Just for its own
right. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the I'm going to say this, but the kind of privilege that John enjoys, having not had to rough it out there too, though.
He's obviously aware this is a post-apocalyptic world, and he understands what's out there and what needs to be done in order to protect himself. But he hasn't had to. I mean, kind of like if we go to the Vultures in that episode when they confront Madison and they say, "Well, you just haven't been tested yet."
Right. I don't think he's ever come across
a group,
a person,
a formidable group, an opponent, a foe that is looking to do damage to you.
Well, not even like the smallest thing. They're just the worst of people that come out as a result of all this.
Right.
He hasn't seen the dark side of humanity.
Yeah, he hasn't seen the dark side of humanity, and you can tell that he hasn't been tarnished by that yet.
And so far, a lot of people are worried about John Dorie turning dark. I'm not as much, and we can talk about that in the next episode, but I think the end result of him not really being exposed to the worst of the humanity is that he's maintained his sense of morality.
Right.
Now, I don't think he's a dummy. He is a cop.
Right.
He's seen the worst of humanity even before the apocalypse. Yeah. Then he had his moment where things went wrong.
Right. And it weighs on him. It's something that weighs on him morally and emotionally. Then that was sort of a moment for him where he's had to kind of live with, and that's part of
his burden, basically.
Yeah, his burden to bear, and that was part of like the isolation that started even before all of this happened.
Right. It's like a perfect storm of having this burden, isolating himself, maintaining a routine, knowing in general that he's a good guy anyway. In spite of what we find out his burden is, I think overall he does maintain, and I think he does see himself as a good person that did a horrible thing.
And the thing is that I think that we come away with, okay, this is a person who is flawed, who isn't flawed, but
right. And recognizes his flaw.
But he recognizes his flaw and is dealing with that, with the guilt of that.
Right. And even still, like the flaw itself, the flaw that he sees in himself,
it still wasn't from a malicious place. Like it still wasn't.
It's not even that. It's his flaw is technically taking his guilt and turning it into this handicap almost.
Right.
That's his real flaw.
Right.
Like, because we all make mistakes. A lot of it has to do with intentions. He intended to disarm. Before the apocalypse, Robert basically goes into the local store, the one he ends up frequenting a lot in the episode. and he goes, "Hey, I'm a cop. Don't move. If I'm a really good shot. If you do, it could get ugly." And then he shoots the robber in the leg, but as he shoots him, the robber turns and it ends up mortally wounding the thief. And people are basically calling him a hero, but at the end of the day, he doesn't see himself that way. And the more people congratulate him and want to give him more attention, the more he wants to pull away from society because he just doesn't feel it. He doesn't feel the adulation. So it's this burden that he puts on himself. He just puts this thing on, and before he has a chance to reconcile with it and be okay with it, apocalypse happens, everybody goes away, so he really doesn't have a chance to get any of that closure. He's in his head the whole time, in isolation. So what do you do? But going back to my earlier point was that I think this is a perfect storm where, because he hasn't been exposed, he maintains this sort of humanity, being an overall good guy. I think it ends up being this really big net benefit to everybody involved in the present. So I think having him the way he is this kind of man out of time almost, having not experienced any of the follies of humanity going down the drain. I think he has there's like a means to maybe balance the load, basically, like tilt the scales in a way morally, so we can hopefully equalize everybody. And I think that's what makes this episode so brilliant and beautiful, and gives us a sense of why this guy is so out of place. The thing that we've been asking ourselves, what?
We meet this guy in the first episode of this season, and we're like, who is this random gunslinger cowboy sitting around a campfire? It was just so random and so hard to kind of figure this guy out.
Odd.
Yeah, and it was like, who is
so
this?
Odd.
I mean, kind of, well, what's the name of that episode? What's your story? I mean, it was...
what's this guy's story?
What's this guy's story? What's your deal,
What's your
deal? Exactly. I'm like, what is your deal, dude?
Oh, man.
This episode definitely gave us the insight that we needed to understand where his head's at, where he came from, and why he's so fixated on this Laura.
Yeah, exactly. We almost thought that his thing with Laura was kind of the thing to kind of pass the time, but no.
It's like, no, it's far more.
It turned out to be wilder.
Yeah,
wilder than our crazy imagination.
Yeah. And also the fact that she really was the conduit to catapult him really from his existence that he had to the point where he met Morgan or came upon Morgan.
Oh, unstuck him, right?
Yeah.
Out of time.
Yeah, pulled him out of his isolation and basically pushed him to say, nope, I'm not just going to stay cooped up in this house on an island forever and ever. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find her and I'm going to make this happen. I like the fact that there's so many more layers to this story and that her role or her character, Laura, it's not a throwaway sort of thing. She played a very important role to him.
Yeah, it was convincing. At the end of the day, this episode was a huge payoff. Again, going back to the game theory thing. For all the misery that we've had to put up with, and we put up with, I wouldn't say gladly, but we put off just in search for a good story.
Right.
But we've had to go through these motions to get The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead support groups going on by way of this podcast.
Yes.
So then you get this episode, and I'll tell you, to the point where I was having quite a bad week last week. So
I remember you telling me that it totally lifted your spirits.
Indeed. And what was good about that is that I was doing it for notes, so I get to pause every now and again. I get to write things down. I get to really, really sink my teeth again in this episode. And then what I realized was there are moments where I'm on the verge of tears because it's just so good. It's not even like a bad cry.
No, it was so good and it was so heartwarming, and it just made me love these characters even more.
Oh, yeah.
It invested me even more, and which is something to be said, because anybody can say this, because these particular characters are not our regular Fear cast. These are brand new characters that none of us had come across until this season, and I'm invested. I'm in. I care. I want to see.
And Vanity Fair is in, by the way, too, which is interesting because you wouldn't think Vanity Fair would have any sort of commentary on a sort of zombie apocalypse type of show.
Yeah, that is a very good point. They're both such good actors too. Jenna Elfman is amazing in her role, and like I said, Garrett Dillahunt too. They really just knock it out of the park, and they really convey the sentiments, and it just hits all the right notes. And I get it, and I'm invested, and I'm in.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting when you get these. Well, Jenna Elfman more than Garrett Dillahunt, because Garrett Dillahunt's done some serious acting. It's kind of a 50% comedic acting, 50% dramatic acting, or sci-fi acting, whatever. Jenna Elfman, for the most part, I think she's been yeah, exactly. She's been in like these sitcom-y kind of comedic roles, and just to see her get this kind of dramatic acting kind of chop, I think it's a really good entry point for her to earn those kinds of stripes. I'm sure she's done other things before.
No, I know, but she's been sort of typecast in the past as sort of like this quirky blonde. When she smiles, there's just a cuteness about her, which is great, but she has been typecast for so long and pigeonholed as this type. So I'm really glad that she's getting this opportunity to really flex her acting chops in a way that she hasn't had the opportunity to with other roles.
Right. It's been such a boon for her, and she's paid it in kind. She's really done a great job. And you know what? I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a crazy fan of Jenna Elfman.
No, I mean, I liked her as...
But now I am.
I liked her as a person. Like, I was never a huge Dharma and Greg watcher. I knew the show, and I knew of her, but I was never a diehard watcher of the show. So I really wasn't super familiar with all the roles that she played or anything like that. But that's how I knew of her, basically. But this is 180 from that. And I like when I see that. I like when I see actors take on roles that are such a big departure from what you know them for. I respect that.
Oh, yeah. And as always, it's always interesting to see mostly comedic actors go into dramatic acting and try to do something special. And people have gone into this before. Some people say that sometimes comics or comedic actors will do things that are way more interesting that stand out more than the usual dramatic acting. The imperfection in the performance in a way. Sometimes when you look at a comedic actor versus a dramatic actor is, you see the actor, and the actor is really the character. When you see a comedic actor, there's these imperfections that make you kind of flip back and forth. They make you see them as the person, and then, oh, they are the character, no, they're the actor, and then you remember that funny bit that they did in that other show, and then you come back, and that little bit of imperfection kind of makes you pay attention more, I think, instead of be like lost in the story.
Right.
So, do you know what I mean? There's like a special sauce, is the way I'm going to put it from here on in, but it's that special sauce of not being quite 100% this convincing dramatic actor. It pulls you into the performance even more.
It does. It pulls you in.
Because then they sound like real people.
Exactly. To me, it's more convincing because it's an interpretation from a quote-unquote real person rather than, let's say, a dramatic actor. When done right, I'm not saying that everybody can do it effectively, but when done right, it's very convincing.
Yeah.
And relatable as well.
Yeah, and that's the key takeaway is that they just feel more like authentic people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like comedians, I think they're more observational. I think they have wide dramatic.
There's a lot of people that say that comedians have so much, and there's been different conversation about this, that comedic actors or comedians in general have so much depth and even just a well of darkness, which is part of where but it's part of how they approach things. It's like they have potentially this well of darkness, and the comedic aspect is what they use to kind of counteract all of that. But it's there. That depth is there, and not all comedians. Some of them have had some major issues.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was laughing a little bit. I was like, oh, you mean the egotistic narcissism that many of them have?
Not all, but many.
No, most.
Just saying.
Yeah, and chronic depression, all those things.
Depression, drug use,
Yeah, there you go. Just list the foray of afflictions, of,
again,
disorders.
Not all, but some.
But most.
Just saying.
I'm not even going to say some. Most.
I know. God.
But, we're all flawed, right? It goes back to we're all flawed.
We're all flawed.
Don't kill me.
Laura, John Dorie, we're all flawed. It's okay.
Oh, no, we're not. No, none of us are John Dorie.
No.
None of us are John Dorie.
He's so kind and so sincere. Oh, my gosh.
Pure as the driven snow. My God.
I have to imagine that because obviously now, they're so in part of this Walking Dead universe that they're going to cons and Talking Dead and all of that. I have to imagine that women are losing their minds for him now. They have to. I'm just saying, they have to.
I'm wondering, actually, because
they must.
I've been seeing it. So here's the thing. The thing that I've been seeing is that people say I love John Dorie. but I think he's too nice because I have not seen. Okay, when you compare the reactions to Norman and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I don't see those reactions for Garrett. And not to say that, look, secretly I'm in love with him. Whatever.
Yeah,
I'll let you all know.
True. I haven't investigated as much, but he's also a fairly new character too.
That's true.
Norman Reedus and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, not too long, like what, a couple of seasons, 2.5 seasons or so.
Yeah.
Obviously, Norman Reedus has been on since the beginning, so he's got practically 10 years of this under his belt. So he's endeared by many.
The Darylettes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're ride or die for him.
Topper every comment, man. Comment list.
Those chicks are crazy. But and just as a side note, I saw an advertisement about one of the recent cons that I think is coming up, and I think Mel from the Vultures is going to be at one of these, and I think that he commented and kind of referred to Jeffrey Dean Morgan and was saying, "Hey, are you going to be there? Because I need you to hold my hand through this," because he's never been at a convention setting and as a villain, and he's so apprehensive about what to expect in terms of fan reaction.
Oh my god!
Because I mean, from a fan reaction standpoint, and that's why I mentioned the whole thing about Gary Dillahunt, it's like people get in it.
Yeah.
I'm invested, but I mean, not the way some...
Yeah, I still have my sense of reality.
I have my sense of reality, exactly.
I think that's why I go on Instagram, because I do want to get a sense of reality. I need to see these people in a normal setting.
Yeah, no, for sure, because I mean, some people kind of, don't. No, they're way in.
All the comments about certain people, oh, they better be okay. They better be okay. They better be okay.
I'm like, okay, freak.
Where's Madison?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is Mel's concern, or the character of Mel. I forget the actor's name. But,
please don't kill her. I want to live. I don't want to be Dr. Eugene Porter.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Hey, listen, it's a testament to how good of an acting job some of these guys do. But
true.
It's gotta keep the reality in check.
Yeah. To his credit, and this is something that I'll bring up, and I really can't bring up anymore because of the next episode, but we have not seen a single vulture take out a weapon, anything of that kind.
No.
So we really don't know what they are capable of.
Right.
We don't see them going dark at all.
No.
At all.
It's just this ominous threat that's just there.
Yeah, this vague threat, very vague, to the extent of, this is what it comes down to. We're going to wait till you starve, and then once you're dead, we're going to probably put you in a box with numbers on it because you're a walker now.
Mm-hmm.
And
then just pick up the scraps.
Exactly. And then just pick everything clean so that we can walk out and do what we need to do. Keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then no threats of violence. Just a lot of advice. So in a sense, you could say, oh, well, he's kind of nice.
He's providing guidance.
Exactly. So
that's one way to interpret it, sure.
We've been conditioned in such a way, even with this guy's backstory. I mean, this guy's backstory makes you think in a way, well, what makes this guy any different from any other protagonist? All this guy is doing is what he's used to. The way he's encountering opposition is just by saying, hey, look, we got you surrounded. You can go in and out all you want. We're going to make it to your spots faster than you. And when you're left with no choice, it's going to be the end for you. Unless you want to join us, I'm more than happy.
Yeah.
So and then they just either they grow their ranks or they grow their supplies. That's it.
That's it.
I'm still going to maintain, even though we've seen the next episode, I'm still going to maintain that the vultures are still kind of, I don't see them as a bad guy. There's no reason for me to think that they're bad guys yet. In spite of what they do, which it's kind of a lot different than the Saviors. It's different than Rick's crew. Like these guys are fighters. They're scrappy.
Oh, yeah.
These guys. So vultures, it's kind of like,
it's a different approach.
The path of least resistance whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what reason do I have to kind of hate them more than I hate any of the other groups? So it's kind of silly.
Yeah, it's true.
But I kind of want to go back to the flawed character bit, because it does bring us back to the beginning of the episode, and that the first shot is done so well. It tells you everything you need to know about, hey, wait, hold on, there's a walker on your porch and you're going out to hit him with the axe. You were just cleaning your guns. Why don't you just use your guns?
Right.
And it's this still shot. You see him put down the gun on the banister. And in that same shot, the camera does not move. He's walking around. You see the blurry.
I'd like that. I did notice that. I thought it was very effective. There was a lot of really artistic shots in this. Oh, yeah. And that was definitely one of them, for sure.
Yeah. And yet the blurry figure, him taking out the walker, done. And so you see right away something is up because he
Right.
wasn't holding back before, in the
No.
present, but now he's holding back. There's something wrong here. And then you find out about the robbery, etc., and that really kind of ties it all together. This whole idea of this flawed character.
Right.
It's just quite interesting to see this play out. And then the fact that he held back from even saying the story because he just feels I don't think he was quite ready to tell her in the boat, Naomi.
Yeah.
Because he was getting close. And it's funny because you were saying it before, is that essentially overall Naomi basically brings him out and brings him out into the world.
Yeah.
Whether he likes it or not.
Right.
And in one way, of course, by loving her. But in another way, she ends up forcing his hand. When they see that the walkers have been spilling out of the overpass on the river, and they've been washing up in his house.
Yes.
And they finally go out to they tried to patch it once, fine. They had to patch it again with the car.
Right.
And then you had the walker with the machete through his chest, tearing open the Jeep's vinyl windows. And on the way, he finds out that she brings one of his guns.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
I do. I do remember.
Do you remember his reaction? It's kind of like pissed off.
Yeah, he was. He definitely was. Yeah, Laura's eye on the prize. She's definitely scrappy. But she basically forces his hand, like you said. And we start to get more and more pieces as to what is holding him back. And you keep seeing him constantly just holding back from just going there. So that moment when he does go there, the nighttime scene where basically you've got this overflow of walkers and you have this moment where she falls in the trench essentially of the moat, and he has to react. By the way, I love that scene. That was some sharp shooting in terms of stylistic shooting with the guns.
It was the shots too, the way they lined up the shots.
The way they lined up, it was yeah.
It's almost like a Western. Okay,
It was
to
like,
paint the scene a little bit better. He's forced to get the guns, right?
He's forced to get the guns, yeah.
Because Laura is overrun by walkers. They're basically all on top of her.
I know that was.
And he doesn't do it for him. Yeah, I was skeptical too. I was like,
I was just
people
like,
have been bit for less.
For less, exactly. I was like, obviously we know she gets out of this situation, but I was like, how in the world this?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Okay, suspension of belief. All right.
But I think that's the thing. That's what makes him bust out the guns. That's what makes it so cool, because they're like, what? And then you see this. And the shot, it's face forward, this tight shot of his face and just the two guns. It's like an old country Western.
It is. It's like and I appreciate that. I love the style of that. I loved it.
Oh my God.
It was so cool.
There's a little kid that kind of jumped out of our chest at that moment.
Yeah, because it was so cool. Here was the gunslinger that we basically kept getting teases of, and we saw little points in previous episodes where he kind of can twirl the gun.
Oh yeah, in the beginning, right?
Yeah, like we've seen little pieces, little like kind of hints of that, but this is the first time we ever really kind of saw him in action.
Oh, in heavy action, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. When he was in the Jeep and faced with that machete walker, and she brought the gun against his wishes. I'm sorry. Yeah, he did everything possible to not use it.
Yeah,
and he didn't for himself. But when it came to Naomi,
he made the sacrifice, doing something that he was not comfortable with. He would not go that way to save himself, but he would go that way to save her.
Right.
Even if it's something that he is trying to put behind him and that he does not want to do because of his new sort of moral code that he doesn't want to succumb to. He doesn't want to revisit that place where he was before.
Right.
But for her, he'll go there.
Yeah. When we go to the present in the initial, like when we're in the first episode, he even explains to Al and to Morgan that he doesn't kill. He tries not to kill.
He tries not to. Yeah.
So you see that he's maintained that still.
Yeah. We still see that from the beginning of the season. He is trying to find this woman, and he doesn't want to kill. He knows how to, obviously, but that's not what he's trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And even like in general, he just tries to avoid having to do that.
He wants to avoid those situations as much as he can.
Yeah. He maintains this even after this encounter. So I just think it's very interesting to see that he's maintained like a balance now at this point, where he's not afraid to use them at this point, but when he absolutely needs to, but he will try to holster them as much as possible.
Yeah.
I almost want to go to the next episode, but I have to hold back.
I know. Everything I think was so beautifully done, and even the point where Laura washes onto his shore. He hears this noise, he comes out, and here's this, she's not a mermaid, but it kind of made me feel that way. It's like,
I was just thinking that too. Oh my God. Like this is some sort of mythology thing.
Yeah.
Like the Odyssey or something. He washes up on the shore.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like the whole episode and these kind of little details just had that sort of feel. And so he comes out and here's this serene creature that washed up on his shore. And I
was thinking more like a siren, but yeah.
Yeah, like a siren. Yeah, exactly. Same idea.
Yeah.
He brings her in.
Helen of Troy. But yeah,
Helen of Troy. Sees that she's got a nasty wound.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. And yeah, that was oof.
It's not a bite.
No, yeah, he did assure her it's not a bite, so that's something. That's about as good a news. I think he said that's about as good a news as you can get in this world. I was like,
exactly. The biggest silver lining in this situation, sure.
Yeah, exactly. But no, and we see the same sort of Laura that we've seen. Very defensive. Obviously, she's been through some stuff, clearly.
Well, yeah, even when he fishes her out and dumps her on the bed, the first thing she says in this delirious... She says, we have to go back.
Yeah.
Where does she have to get back to?
Yeah.
Right? And we're getting hints of now, what is this squirrely character? Why does she say where she's from?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
we definitely get little pieces but she's very guarded, but she wants to just kind of be on her way.
Yeah, and we do see kind of why later on in the episode, because she blurts it out in a certain scene.
Yeah.
She makes it very clear throughout the episode, much to John's dismay later on as they're getting to know each other, because this wound is taking a very, very long time to heal. It's not as if it's taken days. I would surmise that she's been there at least a month. Yeah.
Hey, look, it took...
Ain't no spring chickens, ain't healing up that quickly.
I had to be on disability for a month for a hand operation. So this chick's wound to the gut, a month.
A month tops, at least in the movie world.
At least in the movie world.
So yeah, that's a long time to spend every waking hour with someone.
You'll get to know somebody real quick.
Yeah, especially a doting John Dorie, taking care of your every concern, at least in the first few days.
God, the stitching up. Ooh, I was like,
man.
Oh God, jeez.
And you could see him flinching too.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. He was like, oof. But she was tough, and I think that's why he surmised later on that she was a nurse, because I mean she gave very clear instructions on what needed to be done.
Yeah,
and she would have done it herself, but the angle.
I couldn't.
God.
I mean, maybe I could.
Have you ever gotten stitches? You've gotten stitches.
I finally got stitches, but this was like microsurgery. So it was like 2 on each microsurgical incision.
Oh, so it was like 2 stitches, really?
Per hole. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right.
No, I wasn't awake. So it doesn't count.
I've had both situations. I've had situations where I've had local anesthesia and haven't felt the stitches, and I've had situations where I've been fully conscious and have gotten stitches, and that shit sucks.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Yeah, I hope to never find out.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember telling Eddie, my husband, about it. He was like, you felt everything? I'm like, every stitch. Yes, you single one.
Do they not put any sort of local anesthetic on there?
Depends on where you're getting the stitches.
Oh.
Certain areas you can. It's a little easier. Even with this hand operation was mind-blowing to me. There's this in-between thing called sedation, which is what I got for the hand operation, which I didn't know anything. I was like, what the hell is sedation? It's sort of like an in-between where it's not to the full extent of anesthesia where your organs operate a certain way. They give you an injection, it's applied intravenously, and you literally kind of go to sleep for a certain point or whatever. It's not to an extent of a general anesthesia where you're out for this prolonged period of time.
Right, but it dulls your senses. It keeps you kind of sort of awake.
No, I was out.
Oh.
I was out, but I guess it's not to the extent of a general anesthesia where it takes a considerable amount of time for you to wake up. And I have heard that when you're under general anesthesia, a lot of people have adverse reactions when they come to. There's side effects.
I didn't.
Coming out of it. I didn't know. I haven't. It's all news to me. But for me, I just basically woke up and I was...
You high-fived the doctor with your bad hand.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't believe that we did a podcast while I was on morphine at the
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
It was like, at the time, I was just kind of like, oh my God.
It's like,
what have I done?
What are we doing?
Is this the right move? But you know what? I'm realizing in retrospect.
Marquee episode.
I'm realizing in retrospect that, she didn't have the ability to say no.
No.
So I'm like, God.
No, I was just like, sure, I don't have to share a room. I have my own hospital room here, and I'm in a bed. Like, there's nothing that I can do. Literally. I'm
the king of the castle, baby.
I'm the king of the castle. What am I going to do? Like, I lay here and watch TV for like a week. So I would rather do something with my time.
Oh, so good.
So funny.
It's so much better. I'll say one thing: the episode ages very well. It ages very well. Can't even tell everybody what episode that was, but you'll see it in the episode details. Basically, it'll say something like Dave is caffeinated, Carol is sedated, or something like that. Let's do this.
That is so wrong, but so true.
Yeah.
It was exactly the state I was in.
Yeah, it's like I had to make up for whatever was going on. But so funny. Sorry.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it becomes very funny.
Listen, landmark episode. Landmark.
Watershed
moment.
Oh man, I have so many notes on this episode. This is ridiculous.
There's a lot to dissect here.
You wouldn't
no pun
think,
intended.
though. You really wouldn't.
It's because it's subtle. The episode doesn't beat you over the head with things, but it's little details that come up that happen that you notice, and they go a long way to kind of making the end effective, the overall arch effective, and the little things that happen in between are the ones that kind of push the story along. It pushes the narrative.
Oh yeah, you remember when she ransacked his cabin?
Yes.
And she was looking for the keys. And
that was pretty crazy. He wakes up and she ransacked everything, and especially considering he's so meticulous. Whoa, she went through the cabinets, she went through everything. She was at the car, and the funny thing is that he kind of accepted it at that point. He was like, if you're gonna go, the keys are right there. You can go. You can stay until you get better, but if you have to go, okay. Oh, but yeah, it doesn't work out well.
Oh my God! You know what I just realized? The way he treats Naomi is the same way Madison treats anybody she comes into contact with. She does the same thing with Naomi, sure, but she does the same thing with Charlie too,
yeah,
and anybody else
true.
that they,
That is true.
Wow. Because of the way you put it just now, I'm realizing, wow, okay, so there is this kind of generous nature that it's not only just him, it's Madison as well. She's like,
that is true.
Hey, I don't want to invade your space. I want you to want to be here,
Yeah.
And I don't want you to feel attacked, feel like you have to be here, feel threatened. That's so interesting. I didn't even think about it until just now.
I didn't think about it either, but that's a very good point. He's very sincere. He generally is looking out for her best interests without ulterior motives involved.
Right. It's that kind of person, like I said, is that perfect storm of not having to see the worst in people, but knowing what people are capable of.
Yeah.
And I think he goes way out of his way to the point where he says, you don't have to tell me your name. I'm just going to call you Laura.
Yeah. He doesn't push. He tries where he can, but he also knows when to back off. So he kind of respects that boundary, even creating the curtain.
Yeah, I don't think he even tries to know more. I honestly don't.
Push. No, he doesn't.
He doesn't push at all. No. In fact, he pulls away.
And he creates the barrier that she wants. You can have this bed. Look, I made you a little curtain here so you can have your privacy. I'm going to be over here. You don't have to tell me your name. You look like Laura, so I'm going to call you Laura.
Do you think before he really started falling in love with her, do you think that maybe he did this not only just because he's a genuinely sincere guy, but maybe also to get back to his routine of being away from people and society and the world?
I mean, I think that there's a protective nature there too. He has to protect himself emotionally. So I agree. I think that there is an element of that where, yes, he wants to get to know her, but he's also still on guard of protecting himself, not physically, but emotionally, and not getting emotionally invested.
Especially because she's leaving, right?
Right, because he seems to be very clear about the fact that she's leaving. He's kind of accepted this. She's only here until she gets better, and then she'll be on her way. So he tries to create this sort of boundary or boundaries. And with time, she's kind of the one that starts to inch towards him.
Yeah, that's true. But I think his boundaries sort of wear away too. I think there's a part of him that can't help himself. Try to, while she's here, let her in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's his first mistake, because you see that one scene, basically she's almost healed up and not that she's about to leave, but after all this time she does mention that, I should be ready to go soon, and it's that last day where they're pulling the Jeep up and that whole scene that we described earlier, and where they're about to leave. And you see it in his face as he's about to go. He's saying, well, yeah, no problem, I guess so, if you're feeling up, because he's really upset about this. He's really upset about hearing that she's about to leave. He knows that she's going to leave. He knew the whole time.
Yeah.
But there's that part of him that let her in just a little too much. And that it's moments like that, these little moments where you see the bits of hurt in his face when he hears it. He hears that, it's almost time to go. And you see it in his face, and he's kind of let down. Yeah. And he maintains that mood as they leave the cabin in the back. I'll just patch it up. She goes, no, we did this together. You helped me, I'm gonna help you. And he goes, well, if you really wanna. That kind of hurt. And as I was watching that, I was like, oh my god, man.
Yeah.
You got the love bite.
I know.
You got bitten by the bug.
I know. You can see that he's grappling with it.
Yeah. And it's and let's be honest, he kind of sounds like a kid almost, like when a kid's like, well, if we really feel like it, I guess. Yeah, I know. Maybe. I know. But I like it because it's cute.
It is. It's endearing. It's endearing. I mean, like, it's very endearing because as much as she has tried to have a wall up, he has as well. These are both two people who are trying to be very on guard and protect themselves. Obviously, in her case, because she's been through some serious stuff. And in his case, not to trivialize what he's gone through, but in his case, it's more of a defense mechanism to protect his emotional,
protect his heart.
Yeah, protect his heart.
His poor heart.
But what do you think about the moment where she blurts out on the couch about she lost her child?
Yeah, because and that's the thing. That moment is very interesting because, as you know in the beginning of the episode, he has a hard time sleeping, and even when she's over, he still has a hard time sleeping.
Yep.
They fire up the candies and the popcorn, and she finally kind of eases into a movie. You cut to the next scene, and he's fallen asleep on the couch, which means...
It means that she's brought him some peace.
Yeah, exactly. Or like some sort of, I don't know, fulfillment or some like
kind of
life is somehow resumed for him.
Right. Some sort of contentment that he can fall asleep. Because, I mean, listen, I've said this before. I don't know how anybody sleeps on this goddamn show, universe, anything. Like when we had Walking Dead and we had the episode with when Tobin turned and people were turning or whatever, I was like, how are you all sleeping? I don't know how anybody is sleeping soundly. Walkers are freaking rolling down the stairs and you guys are just...
Walkers are rolling down the stairs. And you have the audacity
to be sleeping, not even have like at least 5 of you on guard.
I wonder about that because I think Rick in the past, surviving in the wilderness, they would sleep in shifts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Sleep in shifts. I heard one person that tried to excuse his behavior and basically said at this point in the apocalypse,
his last mistake. I showed him. Continue. How did you school this noob?
No, I didn't say anything. I just was reading how, a lot of people had the same criticism about that particular episode. And one person tried to basically come up with a theory and say that the reason, and this is their attempt, say that the reason that people were able to sleep so soundly is that at this point of the apocalypse, people's ears are so fucked up from all the gunfire that their hearing is just not that great.
And then the internet made him a pariah.
Oh my god. And I was like, okay.
It's just they've been rattled. They don't get rattled by loud noises anymore.
By loud noises. I was like,
it's Daryl or it's Dwight or something.
Yeah.
Ignore it.
I was like, wow, well,
So like half of you is kind of like, yeah, but the other half of you is kind of like, what?
Yeah, one half of me is like, what are you talking about? The other half is like, well, realistically speaking, I mean, people lose hearing over like freaking lawnmowers. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, we lose our hearing from concerts, being stupid.
Never mind. Yeah, never mind assault rifles. So.
Oh my God.
10 years worth of 9 seasons worth of assault rifles,
which amounts to, I think, if you look at the timeline, I think it hasn't been more than like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, maybe
something like that.
Yeah, and just now the Fear timeline is kind of catching up to the current timeline, because we've kind of forced them to kind of catch up. Oh my God. So yeah.
So yeah, it has brought him some peace to the point that he was able to actually nod off.
And I think she recognizes that too. And that gives her that in.
And that gives her that moment for her to basically kind of come out with her truth, to basically say, I lost a child. Which was interesting because it reminded me of the episode where they first meet Laura at the silos and they asked her, there's a child with us, because they were looking for Charlie's parents, at that point. And you can tell that she kind of gets emotional and she's like, I don't have a child. The way she said it in that episode definitely implied something. And then now in this episode we see she did directly.
Right. There's there's no way it could be my child.
Right.
And this is why.
This is why. Yep.
So heavy. The way she did it was quite perfect as well.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, it's
And we
like
don't get any
there's
more
no
information
good way. Yeah. There's no good way to say it.
No, there is no
but
good
there's
way.
a part of her that wants to reveal herself because of everything he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Or even still, I think maybe it's the fact that she's leaving, and maybe the fact that her feelings are growing as well. Mm-hmm. That at least she wants to kind of give him something.
Yeah. I mean, it also can be a bit of a relief. Like, I mean, he has relief and feeling this peace that he can nod off, and she's in a safe place.
Yeah, exactly.
She finally kind of internally comes to the conclusion that, yes, I am in a safe place, so I can say my truth, and it's okay.
Right.
She feels that she can, and she does. And it doesn't matter whether he hears her or not. She feels safe that she can go there.
You know,
it does a lot.
Yeah, it's funny because we've already seen the next episode. I feel like as this season or mid-season ends in a couple of episodes, there may be value in watching these episodes backwards, because the next episode really gives you the sense of how significant the episode prior is. Mm-hmm. Because you find out a little bit more about her, and after you do, and you think about the episode prior, oh wow, to have that safe space, to feel in some sense not redeemed but more there's a safety that somebody could make her feel special again after her dumping on herself for so long, from what must have been for so long, suffering for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so to see her actually blurt those words out is just, it's a relief that she could talk to somebody about it. And as you've seen with the group before, again, with this group that, I mean, has obviously, I think they've tried to make her feel as safe as possible. And I think there are John Dorie-esque elements that they as Madison said, hey, you're welcome to leave anytime. Just tell us. Tell us when you're leaving. This way we know we're one less car. But to the point where she doesn't share her story with them, even knowing that that's love. Bottom line.
Yeah.
This is
exactly.
this kind of gives us the idea that there is love, and she cannot help it herself. She can't help it but not hold back that one fact.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. But now,
Show
by the way,
her vulnerability.
it's her basically saying to him, I can't help the way I feel either. And which I think, by the way, the Jeep, I think it was the sequences that there was the Jeep scene with the machete walker.
Yes.
Then they go back, they watch the movies, the peanut butter brittle popcorn. He falls asleep. She tells him the thing. And then the walkers come out, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The walker horde, basically, that spilled over the Jeep, I think.
Yep, exactly.
As a result, it was.
Yeah, as a result of what happened with the Jeep, pass and all that.
Well, that's interesting. So that happened. She couldn't help herself in spite of that scene not having happened yet. And then he really saves her life.
And then he really, legitimately saves her. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he saved her life before by stitching her up and all that stuff, and making her feel safe and washing her up and all that. But yeah, this is above and beyond.
Yeah.
And I think he needed that. And he needed to be the hero again, to be an actual hero.
Yeah.
Save somebody he loves.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know how it is, right? When you're getting the compliments and when you're being told from the one you love that you're a hero and that you did the right thing, there is... Some people say, oh, it doesn't count because you're biased, but, I think you tend to trust the people that you love. They're not going to...
Of course.
The people that you really love, like your spouse.
Yeah.
I mean, not your family, fuck them. But your spouse.
I'm not talking about them.
Your spouse will give it to you straight. Right?
Yes.
In spite of the fact that sometimes they can be boobs or whatever like that.
Yeah.
They'll give it to you straight, and they'll be honest with you if they're really worth their salt. I think he does take that to heart. He's still going to try not to try to shoot anybody. But I think it reaffirms the fact that I don't think he thinks he's a bad guy. I just think that he is this burden that needs to lift.
Yeah.
Just needs to be lifted.
They played Scrabble, too.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. I thought that was very cute, especially considering he would be playing Scrabble alone in the beginning of the episode. Now he has a Scrabble companion. I don't know.
It's a little bit more challenging. Yeah, because he's just trying to keep his mind occupied, right?
Jesus, yeah. You have to try to keep your mind occupied. Otherwise, what are you going to do? He does a very good job in trying to maintain his sanity as best as he can. But the emotional burden has obviously been there, and which has been like the motivator for isolating himself. And now finally he's starting to kind of let someone in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, by the way, do you remember when they go to the store?
Yes.
Now I'm not going to go over the whole what they do in the store. It's not that important. The store is left pretty much intact for anybody to really go in and take whatever they want. He doesn't hoard all the items. So that's one thing to get out of the way. Is that this guy takes what he needs and he moves on. If somebody comes by, it's there for them. But the most interesting thing is the actual VHS rentals. Now I want to let you know that I actually wrote down
some of the titles,
all the movies that have been rented out in recent memory. Every Tuesday, by the way, from McNeil's Bait and Beer VHS. Okay, I'm going to go through the list now.
Okay.
Now, there's the list of the movies and then the review. He actually gives a review in the sign-out sheet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he writes his name. So it's from the top. There's Labyrinth, and he writes unsettling.
That's accurate.
This gets really funny. On Golden Pond, which is very sad.
Yes, it is very sad.
It's very sad. Smokey and the Bandit. Excellent!
Naturally.
Exclamation point.
Naturally.
Somewhere on Time. Questionable.
Okay, I don't think I saw that one, but okay.
And here's like a complete left turn. Glitter. And
oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, and in caps, not as funny as promised.
I love these writers.
I love this pun. There's this pun right here. The Green Mile, too long.
Ha!
Watership down. Wish it was longer.
God.
So yeah, we got too long. Wish it was longer. Friday the 13th. Too violent. Just too violent.
Yeah.
Road to Bali. Good time.
Oh my God.
Now, here's what's interesting. Meet John Doe, and that's the current rental. So he has no review yet. So it's signed out, not signed in. Now, I looked up Meet John Doe as a movie.
Yeah.
And it's about a new journalist that picks up this hobo that used to be somebody, and he talks about ending his life, and it's just like this manifesto, basically. And the weird thing about that is that it's a story about somebody that pulls another human being out from their routine, this life that they've gotten used to. Something had happened to them, and they went into this. He's a hobo, so he went into this indigent life, let's say.
Okay.
And they pull him out of that again, and as a result, things change for that person, and they also change for the journalist as well. So it's a very interesting story, when it comes to that. It shakes up everybody involved in the story. So I found that kind of interesting. So meet John Dorie.
By the way, speaking of names and John Doe and movie references, I did think it was cute when he introduced himself. He said his name is John Dorie, and she's like, John Dorie, your name's John Dorie? And he's like, yeah, like the fish.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Dorie.
And you like fishing.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, yeah.
Sorry.
And she goes, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
You got to throw it in there, right?
Gotta throw it in there.
So like Finding Dory, like Finding Nemo.
That should have been rented out.
But you fish for those fish. All right. Yay.
Yeah, they do go fishing.
Oh, she learns how to fish?
Yeah. He really takes her under his wing.
Well, they kind of help each other. Like if you think about the stitching instance, now he has that.
And even, by the end, they're working as a team. When these walkers overrun their place and he calls out to her, she comes and they start hauling ass, both of them.
Yeah.
By the end, they definitely have a camaraderie and a level of trust that they're going to back each other up.
Yeah. And they get used to each other. And it's great. It, like you said, the Scrabble. They get into the routine together, but it's different.
And she's doing things willingly and not begrudgingly anymore.
Oh yeah. Before she they kind of slide into that routine, and you know what? That's the thing. It really does kind of go back to what we were talking about. Is that it's not enough to grow these crops and be self-sustaining and survive and all. Yeah, it's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
I think it's about people.
It is about people.
It's really more about the people. Like you can struggle and yeah. It makes you think about life in general. How you connect with people, what you do in life.
And what does it mean to be alive?
Yeah.
Being alive is not just breathing in and out and going through the motions and eating and drinking and
pooping.
And pooping, yes. Yes, in a very literal sense, you are alive, but he was pretty much emotionally just a robot going through the motions, but just kind of lifeless.
Yeah.
And having that human connection is what wakes him up.
Yeah.
And brings him back to life again.
Yeah, absolutely. It pulls him out of his routine. It shakes him into life. And I want to save this for the end because it happens at the end. Yeah, actually, I think we are there.
Yeah, we're kind of approaching that point. When she sits on that couch and she sits close to him, I thought that was so sweet. And he's so uncomfortable. he's like, just leave me be. I was like, oh.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Him holding his hand up. I can't do this.
I can't do this. He's kind of accepted that she's going to leave. He's accepted that when she gets better, she's going to leave. So I am not going to get any sort of emotional attachment here, because why am I going to bother? She's just going to walk out of my door, walk out of my life, and I'm never going to see this person again.
It's like, I love you, and I didn't want you to know. And then she goes, why didn't you want me to know?
That's great.
And he goes, because you're going to leave. And I don't want you to.
Oh, God.
If you want to be on your own, stay. I'll go. I need you alive. Oh, my God. I'm getting emotional.
It was so sweet.
If you're alive, this whole world feels alive.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about feeling alive. And feeling alive is not just the literal feeling alive, but it's also there's an emotional aspect to feeling alive. And it's about the human connection.
Yeah, man. It reminds me of the things, like my mom lives for us kids.
Right.
I know I'm like, you're going from this love story to your mom.
No, it's all love.
All right, let's keep going.
It's all love.
But no, she was lucky enough to be a stay-at-home mom, and sometimes the things she said, whether she was angry or not angry, there were moments in time where you wonder, oh God, she really would do anything for us, even like stand in your way when you wanted to go out, and it was not quite the savoriest place when you're a teenager, or if you're doing something right, they'll lift you up, and they'll do anything to kind of be your own cheerleader or your worst cop, you know.
Right.
So they'll take a bullet for you, that sort of thing. So it just makes you wonder. So that translates when you're a kid and you're looking for love. And when he did this, it reminded me of what it was like to be a teenager. Your hormones are kind of intoxicating, that you're almost at their mercy. Yeah. And when I saw him do the hand motion, please just like get back. Never mind me. It reminds me of what just being a teenager was like. Like I gotta leave. I gotta take a walk. I need to take a deep breath. I need to get away from the situation because it's too intense for me. I can't think properly. I don't want to say what I want to say because if it's not gonna make a difference. Yeah. And if I start talking about this, then I'm gonna have to say the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to like open those
stressing me out.
Yeah. I don't want to open the floodgates.
And then it happened. You sense all of these different emotions coming off of him at the same time. I don't want you to know that I love you. I feel stupid saying it because I don't want you to think that it's nothing. I don't want you to think it's because you're
just
a human woman in the apocalypse. You know, it's not that. You know, it's serious, and I feel stupid just for thinking. It's like all these things that kind of go back and forth. I know it's stupid. It's just so dumb. And I know you got to go, but I don't want you to. And you know, I'll go. You stay, and I'll do whatever you need me to do. I just need you alive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just
stupid things we do.
That dialogue was right up there with some of my favorite love story lines. And I don't like your typical love stories because I find them to be so like. I like flawed. I like flawed love stories. Probably one of the most romantic lines ever was in As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt. You have this really flawed character who falls for this woman. She has her own burden, as a matter of fact, and he has to pay her a compliment. He kind of messed up. He's not the smoothest person. He's fairly awkward, and so he
identify.
He's already kind of put his foot in his mouth. Basically, he's not the most smooth character. He's not the most He's socially inept. He's a little socially awkward. And so to make it up to her, she basically tells him, like, you better pay me a compliment right now to make up for your stupidity. Right. And he was like, okay, I've got a great compliment for you. And she tells him, she's like, I'm afraid this is going to be really bad. Yeah. And so he tells her that he has this sort of anxiety issue. And 9 times out of 10, the issue can be fixed with medication. And he would rather do anything than take all this medication or pills or anything like that. Now, he said there was a moment where he kind of met up with her and she went on a tirade being like, we're never going to be together. Don't get your hopes up or something along those lines. And he said the day after he had that confrontation, I started taking those pills. And she was like, okay. She's like, I don't understand how that is a compliment to me. And he takes a deep breath and he looks at her and he says, you make me want to be a better man. And that's the compliment. And that's the moment that everybody basically fell out of their chairs.
This complete boob.
It was like, oh.
Says the right thing at the right time.
But it's so simple from a flawed character that's like, hey, you just make me want to be a better person. For you, for the sake of you.
Right.
Not for me, because if it were up to me, I don't care. Which is kind of similar, actually.
Oh, yeah. It's this confrontation. He's struggling. He wants to do what's best for everybody. It's almost as if he's kind of hogtied himself from being able to feel anything. And in spite of himself, he's having himself, he can't not do it. He can't not tell her how he feels.
No.
For all intents and purposes, from his point of view, he's like, I just done a wrong thing. Like, this wasn't supposed to be about me. I was supposed to be, you know what, she's supposed to heal up, supposed to go on her way. I wasn't supposed to violate that privacy fence. You know, and there we are.
Yeah.
And that's it. Seal the deal.
Yep. But then sadly, he wakes up the morning after with the Scrabble letters. Full night's sleep with the Scrabble letter spelled out, I love you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And you know what? We quickly switch over to the present.
Yes.
We've got Morgan, and he immediately...
And I love this relationship between these two men. I really enjoy it. And I love that, again, it's the subtleties here. Morgan started off this season, no, I don't need any friends. No, I don't need any of this. Look, he's become essentially his right hand, his companion, listening to his story and giving him advice and reassuring him that no, because, you know, at one point John Dorie says, I shouldn't have said anything. And he's like, no, none of us know how much time we have. You did the right thing by saying something.
Oh, yeah. And the first thing you see, even from that flashback, is the tin of letters saying, I love you.
Yeah, he still has them.
That's the thing with Morgan, is that he's been surrounded by such abject misery. It's just all over the place, man. And it's kind of like what I said, actually, probably this whole season, is that he's been exposed to a type of reality that has been just every wrong move made has brought him further and further down. Yeah. At some point, he finds that bit of peace, and I think it acts more like a bookmark when you really think about it, like a moment in time where he learns something, and then it completely gets unlearned. And then he goes further, descends further and further down this rabbit hole of darkness. And I walked away with the impression that maybe this group isn't the best thing for him, and maybe we're transporting him to a situation where he can be with somebody like this. I agree. This male brother where he needs to be with. Yeah. He needs to see that life can be beautiful.
That's how his relationship with Rick was at one point when this all started.
Or could have been, right?
Or could have been before Rick went off the deep end.
Oh, man. It didn't take long.
I'm still 150% Team Negan on this. I'm not going to get into it.
I'm Team Dorie right now.
I am totally Team Dorie. And I really like this friendship. I really like this friendship.
It's really good for him because, and it doesn't hurt that these two men, like I said at the top of the show, these two men are born of isolation, practically, right? Yep. Both men were on their own island, and both needed to get out. Now, some were crazier than the others. No. At first, he feels kind of embarrassed about relaying the story to Morgan, and Morgan assures him, you know what, she loved you. Yeah, yep. And again, like you said, Morgan said, you know, there's no sense in waiting, man. No, and it's at that moment that in his head, you can see that smile, and he's like, fucking Rick was right. He was right. I didn't get it at first, but he's like, there's no waiting, not in this world. Yeah. So waiting, that's how you lose people.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah. And John even says he's kind of embarrassed and thinking that they could even have a second chance after finding out that she dies. Well, the way Morgan kind of talks to John, he basically does the same thing he did to Nick. You know, you hold on to that feeling. You know, it's this like little opportunity to enlist John in the good fight, and maybe you and me can both show the rest of the group there's another way. It's not always about fighting and killing and dying. You know, Morgan knows his pattern all too well and where it goes. You know,
he knows. He's a seasoned veteran.
Yeah, and for a split second, and this is where like I started getting really worried really fast. Like, oh no, maybe they're right about John Dorie. John is actually wondering if the group is actually right about all the vengeance and all that stuff.
Yeah, but Morgan quickly kind of...
Yeah, but I mean, I was like, oh no, don't do that, John.
Don't go there.
We just had a really beautiful episode. Yeah, and it goes, look me in the eyes, and do you honestly think that?
Yeah.
And you think that he's gonna make an excuse?
And he goes, no.
Well, you know, maybe they're right about that. The world's kind of ugly.
No, and I like that he was honest. He's like, no, I don't.
Yeah. Oh, Such a cute man.
He's such a, because you know what? He's just sincere. There's a sincerity about him.
I mean, like borderline almost innocence in a way.
Yeah,
I don't want to say that because he was a cop, you know?
Yeah, but he's sincere. He's sincere in his intentions and his feelings and where he's at, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's honest with himself more than anything else.
Yeah. And I love the friendship between these two men. Really do.
Yeah.
Really, really do.
We're alive. We're part of the world. And then it's that let's not waste another second.
No, exactly. You don't know how much time you have.
Yeah, so don't waste another minute. Especially after the apocalypse. You think you have all... That's the thing. Take that into stark contrast from where we started in the season. Morgan wasting time in the heaps.
Yes, just killing time. Just killing time.
And it makes you wonder, did he have the thought of running away from that place sooner? And had he, obviously things would have been really, really different. But he left at the right time, but he could have left a long time ago. He could have been part of the world a lot sooner. But I think he needed to be somewhere else. And I think the more and more we see these scenes with him and John, and maybe even with the rest of the group, Nick, and the sweet moments he had with the rest of the group, saying goodbye to Nick, he's exactly where he needs to be. And I could not be more happy that they brought him over. Really did.
I agree. I wasn't sure necessarily what direction this was going to go and how Morgan exactly was going to fit into this bigger landscape of a story, but I like his presence on this show. I do.
Yeah. Tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like they almost designed this season of Fear the Walking Dead around Morgan in a weird way. There's like an overarching story that at the end of the day is going to come back to him. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, he is going to play a very pivotal role and it's going to come back to him. I don't know how exactly, but I think so, especially partially just because of the hype that it's like, and especially
I guess so, you're right.
Yeah, partially because of the hype. Like you can't just say, oh boy, this big crossover, and it's like, nah, he's just kind of side player. Like no.
Or like even like, okay, this is just a huge gimmick to get people to watch Fear. And it's true, but
I think there's more. Yeah, I think there's more to it than that because
there's got to be. How about that?
There has to be, especially because I just look at it from the overall vantage point. This season has been a complete overhaul in every respect.
Yeah.
And you're not just having Morgan, but you have characters like John Dorie, Althea, brand new characters, brand new threat, brand new opening. The approach is just everything. It's just it's practically a whole new show.
I feel like the tagline of this season is Fear the Walking Dead. We're gonna make you give a damn about this show.
We're gonna make you care. We're gonna make you care.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do maintain what I said in the last episode is that I think these characters do breathe new life into the Clarks, basically.
Yeah.
It really does make you give a damn about the Clarks and how they fit into all this and how everybody else fits into their story. I want this to still be about the Clarks at the end of the day, no matter what anybody says.
Side note, I know a lot of people that were more quick
famous last words.
I know that there were a lot of people talking about invested in the Clark. I know a lot of people that were more devastated at Nick dying than Carl.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
I wholeheartedly agree.
I was going to say, I kind of agree, and
I can't believe we didn't bring this up sooner, honestly.
I know. Well, it's been insane. But
yeah, a lot of emotions, ups and tremendous
downs. And planes, trains, and automobiles. I mean, Jesus.
Scrabble boards.
I can't. But it's a very valid point. Even if I think about me as somebody who, again, I was not a diehard Fear watcher, but personally, in my opinion, I think a lot of it, or part of it, had to do with the approach to how they handled the death of Nick versus the death of Carl. And my feeling for that is that I think that the way Nick passed away just was so jarring and shocking that even me, as somebody who was not, let's say, as emotionally invested in his character as somebody like you or anybody who's been there from like season 1, episode 1, I was sort of like, oh, whoa.
Well, you were just getting to know him, right?
Yeah, I found it was very shocking. Like it was very shocking. It was beautifully done. With Carl, I felt it was hammy.
Over the last several months since he died, I've been thinking about this a little bit, and that it's almost as if the way it happens and the nature of him dying, this slow death across a couple of episodes,
And the episode where he actually died was like a 90-minute episode where it felt, and I say hammy in the sense that he had a kind of dissertation monologue episode where it's like, oh my gosh, is this really going to happen in this episode or not? Really? Like it literally got to the point that I was just like, oh, maybe he's not going to die because, Jesus, like he's still talking, isn't he? You know?
Yeah, and you know what it is? It's kind of like, I don't think they could have anticipated the kind of skepticism over him dying. Honestly, I think there was a bit of it, and it should have gone away right before the mid-season break. But I think it carried on into the back half, basically.
Yeah.
If you would have just accepted that he was dying, that maybe you would feel a little bit okay about these monologue-y kind of scenes. But then there's the nature of how Nick dies versus how Carl dies. Nick dies in action, you know, or in motion, you know.
Exactly.
And Carl is basically incapacitated for that episode 9, and
it just feels very senseless. Which, I mean, I guess that's...
Well, it just drags out, and he doesn't get to die in a blaze of glory.
No.
And you know what I mean? Like, I know it's kind of a...
cliche.
Cliche, but also kind of like a simplified way of kind of saying that, but
it
it's
is
kind of true-ish.
It is true. I don't feel that the way they handled the Carl death was necessarily the most compelling.
I feel like we've already said goodbye, basically.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It just hasn't happened, and
it just wasn't handled in the way that I think was the most effective way to do it. Whereas Nick's death was very shocking. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we got to grieve really quickly.
Yes.
It hit you really hard and almost stayed with you for a while.
It was haunting.
Yeah. Well, with Carl, I think it was more of a ramp down. You were feeling it over the course of these episodes, you know, and even afterwards, several episodes afterwards. So there was a cool down period. And you know, I think that's the thing. It's kind of like you were saying before. In this world, there's really no chance for real mourning.
Yeah.
And after mourning for so long on our own, us as watchers, we've been mourning for the past 2+ seasons.
Yeah, Glenn.
So it's enough. So when you get these jarring episodes like Nick, and then having everybody around them, almost all the Clarks, where's Madison? And then, you know, rallying around Nick's death, and then you get this really good, finally, like a payoff episode, like the one we're reviewing now with Laura and John. We need some good high moments. We need an occasional uplifting episode to remind us, okay, it's not just about grinding us into the pavement. Episode after episode.
Yeah. That was season 7.
So it's almost as if, and so it's almost as if it's like an insult almost to have Carl's death drag out so long. It's kind of like, guys, come on. You've desensitized us to a point where we were ready to say goodbye in episode 8 and maybe the beginning of episode 9. It's kind of like, come on, let's do this already.
Yeah. Let's not drag this out any longer than we have to.
We're sad, but now you're kind of making us not sad.
Yeah, no, exactly. Let us grieve.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is why the Glenn death was what it was, because as much as many of us saw it coming, we didn't because of the whole Abraham fake out. So then when Glenn was killed, it was so shocking. Why?
It's something that we touched on during covering Nick's death. It was the idea of not wasted potential, but like potential lost.
Potential loss, yeah.
What's good about what Carl did in those episodes, and I think it was a good thing, is that the letters, him being able to express what he wants the group to do moving forward, he was offered an amount of closure that not a lot of people get to have.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get a chance to have that sort of wherewithal to say, okay, I'm gonna give my last words to everybody I want to give to, and I'm gonna get my things in order.
Yep. When it comes to people like Nick, people like Glenn, there's a potential, and there's a lot of potential energy that gets just all of a sudden gets lost, and that sticks with you, and that hits you hard.
That hits you hard because of that loss. It's
not just the whole ramping down and making us suffer some more. That sucks, and they suck for doing that. Let's be generous and say, okay, Carl was offered that ability to have closure, so there is that. It does take the stink off of it. It does make it hit a little less hard because Carl basically set up the new world that they were going to walk into. Now, Rick just had to open the door to that new world, but...
Stop being crazy.
Yeah, stop being crazy, Dad.
Yeah, listen to your son.
Okay, Carl. I'll do it for you, Carl.
Oh, God.
But I won't do it for another 8 episodes.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
goddamn Rick. Sorry.
goddamn silly, wet-haired, curly Rick.
I don't want to get too spoilery, so I haven't really delved too much into trolling what's going on. But
I've decided to lift the veil of silence on possible spoilers, even comic spoilers on the show, because I think there's a missed opportunity in first of all, not only in having your expertise and your thoughts on spoilers, but also I think there's an opportunity to see my reaction well to these spoilers.
No, that's what makes this little union just so magical.
Yeah.
I'm coming at it from a place of having this particular background.
You've been soiled by the comic books. I'm sorry.
By the comic book. But you're coming at it with a very clear and fresh, open mind.
Like a John Dorie.
Exactly.
One can only hope.
I mean, but I like to always say I'm not like these fanboys that are like, no, it's got to be exactly how it is in the comic.
Thank goodness.
No, it doesn't work that way.
We wouldn't be here.
No.
This is boring. I don't like talking to you.
Yeah. Like, oh my God.
Why are you arguing with me? The comic is right.
God, I can't even stand that. So it's just so ridiculous to me. I have heard these people with these arguments, and they're like, well, the source material is perfect as it is. Why would you need to like make any kind of changes? I'm like, because you have to adapt it to a new medium. It doesn't work the same way.
Exactly. You know where it's most infuriating?
Yeah.
It's when you see it, first of all, on the actors' Instagrams, it's kind of like, I don't have much control over this character, man. So I don't know why you're getting upset with me.
No, I mean...
You killed Nick. Like, for like weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, why'd you kill Nick? Michael Satrazemis.
No, I mean, like, that poor little girl better not show her face at any of these Comic-Cons.
Oh my God, poor Neesonson. What's her name? Charlie? Charlie's the character. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Even Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he'll say it's a whole new level of stardom because you'll be in places and you have people telling you to go to hell. And it's like, you know.
To his credit, though, you have to admit he's fueled trolls all across the internet.
But he is, well, he defends his character, and listen, I completely understand his argument because I've said it many a time. So you know how I feel. I always go back to, why'd you kill all those saviors in their sleep? You know, that's kind of fucked up, Rick. You know, like, just saying.
Yo, that's cold. That's cold, Rick.
That's cold. Like,
Glenn.
I even remember that episode and Daryl and Glenn looking at each other like, whoa, this is a new level of cold.
What did we just do? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that was the turning point. That's called the turning point. Yeah, he gets into it sometimes, but it's just so funny to me because he'll say the same thing. And it was actually very interesting, speaking about comic book spoilers, because in a recent interview, they were talking to him about his big motivation for taking on the role in the first place. And he was saying how he was a reader of the comic book and he loved the character. And what he found so fascinating was the relationship of Negan with Rick's son, Carl, and how this explored another side to him. And the interviewer was like, yeah, and then they killed the kid. And he's like, and then they killed the damn kid. And he was like, I was not happy with that decision.
He was like, I know.
And they asked him, do they confer with you with any of this stuff? He's like, no, I mean, the decisions are made by the writing team and obviously with Kirkman's blessing. But he's like, we don't have any control over what happens to the character or another character, relationship or whatever. That's not, they have no semblance of control over any of that. They just have to kind of run with it. Yeah.
Yes, that goddamn Gimple is code.
Yeah. He doesn't care.
But somebody's got to be the axe man, right? Somebody's got to tell people what to do.
Somebody has to pull the strings. And like I said, I'm very curious to see where this season goes. I could say that I know stuff in the comics, but it's like at the same time, it's killing off Carl kind of shows me that I can't really rely on my comic expertise necessarily, because they could basically say, screw that, we're going to go this route instead.
Well, I mean, we could probably draw a couple lines and see where they go.
Yeah, I think once we get to the first episode, it'll pretty much cement on what direction we're going with this. Where are we? How many years has it been? What's going on? Because we basically are clean the slate. The war is over. Brand new.
We got some baggage.
Oh, there's baggage.
There's so many things that are left over, though, between the whole Maggie that whole dark force and within the camp.
I wonder if the
things that we talked about, basically the potential of her being a possible enemy. And I've had time to think about what we talked about too, and it's seeming more and more likely that I might actually agree that if they are going to go the Whisperers route, Maggie does seem, they may tweak things around. But it would be stupid for them not to make Maggie alpha or something.
Yeah. I don't. It's a big question mark.
Yeah.
That storyline is a big question mark.
And who else could you possibly see? There's nobody I would possibly see other than Daryl being in that zombie mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about it. It just makes sense.
It makes sense. It does make sense. There's just certain things that you're going to have to deviate from that storyline in order to make that work. Many things that you're going to have to kind of say like, well, we're not doing that. We're not doing this. We're going to go this route instead. And maybe that works, but that's just, God, I don't know. You could maybe potentially have Daryl as Alpha's right hand, Beta, and then God, Maggie is alpha. It would be a very interesting approach because we don't get to see too often anywhere where we have these people who are so much like the good guys, they're the good guys. And it's like, oh, what if they end up being like your most formidable opponent yet?
Yeah, and it actually makes me wonder like about Enid also. How does she fit in? Because I don't know if she was in the room as well.
The funny thing is that another comment that I see a lot on the internet that's so funny is, and it's true, Charlie is who everyone always suspected Enid was.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, everybody always suspected from the beginning that Enid was this sort of like in cahoots with the wolves and kind of like a transplant, like a mole and all of this stuff. And it's never fleshed out to be that way. But there's always a shiftiness to her that makes you not trust her all the way.
Right,
But you know what? In thinking about it, maybe you could do the Maggie Whisper story arc because part of my concern or issue is that
aside from the rape,
oh God, jeez, I don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
That's a big problem. Really big problem.
Like, I don't know how, like, or maybe, but you know what? Maybe that's one of those storylines that they forego because they basically decide, you know what? We're not even going to go there because he's never going to let us go there.
I think they want it to fit. I think they want all these pieces to fit. It's just a tremendous opportunity for them not to pass by.
I don't know how they'll adapt it because you could potentially have Enid, because Alpha has a daughter. Obviously, Maggie doesn't have a daughter, but maybe that's Enid's role.
Could be
Potentially.
Yeah.
And in that case, maybe you could, but I don't know.
But then where's the Carl element, right?
Unless you take the little savior kid and now we've jumped in time and you could kind of say like, oh, well, he's, I don't know.
Henry? Oh, yeah, he's much older. But he's still kind of young. He's still going to be younger than Enid.
But they might forego logic sometimes and say, okay, we jumped in the future and now he's older, old enough to make it believable that they would potentially have something.
Oh, or the age gap closes in between Alden and Enid. That could be something.
I don't know.
People get older, the age gap closes in, it's not as sorted.
Yeah.
You know? And you know what's poetic about that? Okay, this makes a little bit more sense because what's poetic about that is you think that Alden and Maggie get together and then because I don't see Alden turning into one of those Whisperers.
No, I don't. I don't see that.
I think I see Alden as if she is going into that path, Alden is kind of like the missed opportunity of Maggie to be good.
Yes.
And then it spills over to maybe Enid, and Enid's been under Maggie's wing this entire time. She's not challenged her as much.
No.
I mean, she gets in Michonne's face, but she never once gets in Maggie's face.
No, never. No. She's always been Maggie's support.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Almost like a
surrogate mother?
Yeah, like a surrogate mother for her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. So maybe that whole idea of her going for Alden is not only just a challenge to her authority, but also kind of like a slight to her as not only a mother, let's say, quote unquote, but also it's very kind of Shakespearean tragedy almost. This guy could have been mine, but I screwed up because I was too wrapped up in trying to get back at Rick.
Yeah.
And you going down, girl.
Maybe they'll go there. I think that would be very compelling to see.
Oh, I would love that.
I would love that. If you would take the character of Maggie, and if you would take two characters like Maggie and Daryl that are so beloved, have been on the show for how many seasons, and you really convert their characters because of what they've gone through and where their heads are at to be this sort of really formidable opponent to Rick and Michonne. That would be pretty damn impressive. It would really make you question, like, man, who am I rooting for here?
That's true. That's true. And yeah, you take that element, and then you continue the theme of who do I really root for?
Mm-hmm. Who do I root for in this situation?
Yeah. So these two things together could make a really good sauce. Let's say.
Yeah.
A good ragu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be very.
Yeah, Walking Dead writers, listen up.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the former rather than the latter, but the former being the enemy from within.
Yeah.
And however they decide to spin that, that's fine by me.
However, yeah. I think it's more compelling than just bringing in a new character.
Well, that, or a new approach to kind of protagonist, antagonist. But to maybe add, if you do add that element of who do I root for, you have to be really careful with that, because I think after a certain point, people like 140 characters or less, or 280 now. People do like limitations, and I think that was a problem with maybe the last season.
With the war, there was no end in sight.
Yeah, well, and you also didn't know who the real enemy was, too, at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't abundantly clear.
It wasn't elegant either.
It was sloppy. Yeah.
The benefit of being in a podcast is we do pay attention to these details, so you don't have to.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the problem. These things should be apparent, and they're not without breaking things down.
No. And that was my feeling on it. I feel that the war dragged on far too long. I understand that they were trying to make it very impactful and resonate and really put out there how important this story arc was, but it didn't need to be dragged out for as long as it did. I just felt, or if...
Like Carl's death.
Yeah. Or if you were going to drag it out, it wasn't done effectively enough to keep me riveted. It was sort of like, okay, alrighty, yawn.
Literally.
It was just sort of like, okay.
I feel like I'm going to keep that in, because I think we're done at this point.
It proves a point. It's like the period at the end of the sentence.
Yeah, it's the ellipses. It's the ... at the end. It's like, excuse me, snooze.
That is how I felt. So
Z.
I hope that they really think it through how they approach this.
I think they are. I think it's set in stone right now. They're filming now.
Yeah, they're filming. So whatever it is, they've already figured it out.
Yeah.
Makes me curious to see. I wonder, because I kind of try to infer based on people's Instagram accounts. I'm like, wait a second, you don't seem to be there. So then does that mean that you're not really a focal part? Like, what's going on?
Where's Ross Marquand?
Yeah, I have not seen him. Seen a lot of Tara.
Oh, you did? I've seen Father Gabriel a lot.
Father Gabriel, Tara, Jadis, King Ezekiel. I've seen a lot of them on set, it seems. Rick, obviously, of course. Michonne, of course.
Yeah.
No Negan, though. I have not seen Negan.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we were to go with the comic, he's in the jail cell.
Isolation.
Yeah. So, obviously, that's a different kind of filming.
Not a lot of outdoor settings, let's put it that way.
Exactly.
I bet you he lives on that set right now. It's very method.
No, he said that it was funny because in that same interview, he was saying how Andrew Lincoln is one of those British method actors and he gets very into it or whatever. And he's like, on Jeffrey D. Morgan's part, he's like, I'm not formally trained. Sometimes he gets really into it in terms of Andrew Lincoln. And there's the fight scene that they had at the house when they were burning down Alexandria, basically. Yeah. And they have their physical altercation. He said that typically when you film this stuff, you can give 50%, and for camera, it works.
Right.
When the lights go on and the filming starts, he says that Andrew Lincoln gives 150%. And he got so into it that he accidentally punched him in the nose, and he gave him like a hairline fracture or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He's like, it's okay. I mean, he's like, he's a really nice guy.
How could you be mad at this face?
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He was like, no, he was really apologetic. He gave me like a gift certificate for like a facial and massage and stuff. He's like, I don't really do that stuff, but it was a nice gesture.
A facial massage? Yeah, sure. Yeah, oh my God, he must have been mortified.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jeffrey D. Morgan's a scrapper, probably.
He's a super scrapper. Honestly, oh my gosh, if you listen to interviews with him, I don't know if you know this, he grew up in Seattle and he was in that whole grunge scene. He knew all those guys back before it became what it was in terms of grunge. He was really close friends with a lot of those guys from Alice in Chains, and he was talking about how obviously a lot of them are dead now. Yeah, but he was saying he was friends with a lot of those guys and knew them before everything really blew up. Yeah, but he's scrappy. He was saying a story about how he was in Washington State and he did start off at college before dropping out like a lot of these actors do. And he was on his way from a basketball game to his dorm, and he got approached by a group of guys, one of them with a knife, that basically jumped him or tried to rob him. And They asked him if he got knifed, and he said no, he definitely got beat up, but he was able to wrestle the knife away from one of the guys and put it through his forearm, and that scared him enough to run off. And I was like, damn, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I was like, holy crap. And he's like, yeah, then I left college and never went back.
Yeah, college is a dangerous place. Never go there.
No, dangerous.
I tried twice. I ran away.
Oh my God.
Both times.
Oh, God. But you know what's really funny?
Those were the days.
Those were the days when we were watching Winamp and downloading stuff off of Napster.
Downloading MOV files, Apple movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good times. I wish I could be like Meryl Streep in Double Worst Product. That's all.
Mm-hmm. That's all.
That's all.
That's all. Yeah.
God, I love that movie. Need to watch that this week.
I like that movie too.
That movie's amazing.
Yeah.
And other side note, quick side note, that movie is my first job experience to a
Oh, really?
T.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Or maybe second job experience. Obviously, I'm an architect by trade, which is crazy. But
wink.
I know, nuts. But I always thought you either work for an architecture firm or you work for a GC. So I ended up working for a GC, making crap money. And I did it for a year just to get experience. And then I figured, okay, I want to go the corporate route because that's where the big bucks are. I didn't even know that fashion retailers had a department that even handled construction and design and build out of their stores. That was news to me. So when the opportunity came along, I applied, I got in, and I was very much like Anne Hathaway's character where I didn't know jack about high fashion. I was 23 years old. Like, I didn't know this designer from this designer. I didn't have any of these fancy clothes. I was fortunate that one of the creative directors there, who was also very similar to Nigel, showed me the ropes, took me to the stores, exposed me to different designers, gave me all the free stuff that he didn't want, took me to a salon, got my hair cut, molded me into this is how you need to represent our industry and department. And it was really eye-opening. So every time I watch that movie, it always takes me back.
Now I'm wondering, I have a proposition bringing it back to the podcast. Now, it's actually good that you actually went to these tangents because now what I think you need to do, you need to learn set design.
I would love to do that. That's actually a very good point. I've thought about that.
And with your architectural experience, what you can do is get in on either of the shows. Or maybe both.
Dude, and I'm not even that far from Georgia.
Yeah, so hop to it.
You know what?
To it. And then we come back and do this podcast. You can tell me, oh my God, Andrew, Lincoln smells like Old Spice times 100. Because he smells like old Britain. No, okay?
Listen,
it's like magic and sweat.
Look, I'll be sleeping outside Jeffrey D. Morgan's trailer. Okay?
You mean his prison cell? Because that's where he's going to be.
No,
he's living there, and you know it.
I know. He's like He's
like, I'm going to try this method thing out for a little.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to try and see how much validity there is to it. But you know what? You make an excellent point.
I do. What the hell are you doing with your life?
I ask myself that every day. Every morning when I get up and I'm in traffic, I ask myself that every single day.
You know, if this podcast did one thing, it was in that was to help you choose your career path. You're welcome.
I even get asked that at work. They're like, God, so you're so good at this. And I'm like, again, why am I here?
You're like, and you're like, duh, wake up the next day to go to work. And they're like telling you, hello. Make your way on the show. Duh, I got to call this client. Like, what are you doing?
It's like, wait, let me get into my Excel.
Oh, it's Monday again.
You got to print out those reports.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. I don't wake up until 2. Why are you even trying to talk to me?
Oh, jeez.
And then that lasts for an hour, and then clock out time is at 8.
On that note, I need to mentally prepare myself for tomorrow. So.
Yeah. So with that, everybody.
Oh God.
Actually, and it happens to be 2:15 now. 2:15 a.m.
I need to mentally prepare myself. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is good. This is inspiration.
This is a great spot. Yeah. We're looking to the future. Carol's going to get on the set of The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead and report back to you.
Make this happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they have NDAs, so we're screwed.
God.
I can't say one thing. No, you can't say anything.
I know, you can't say anything. I will be tarred and feathered. You'll never hear from me again.
Oh my gosh. No, we will. We'll just hear about how embarrassing it was that you got fired after a week.
I know.
And they found out about your podcast.
Jesus Christ.
And with that, everybody, until next week, where we've got a lot to talk about.
Yes. See you next time.
Adios.